just learned from Inge that there are 3 characteristics in a project. Each project has a scope, is temporary in time, and requires resources. If we now put these characteristics into a triangle, you get what is called the project management triangle or the triple constraints model. Why do we speak of constraints? Because each of these characteristics can be seen as a restriction on your project. You can be limited in time or limited in budget. Because they are interconnected, if you change one of these variables, it'll probably mean that you have to change another one as well. If you don't, the predefined quality of the project will suffer. You know what? Let's ask Berend for a real-life example.
Hi, I'm Berend, and I'll be sharing my real-life project management experience. My project was to organize a surprise birthday party for a good friend of mine. And as the organizer, or the project manager, I had to balance the 3 constraints of scope, time, and resources as well. As for scope, I knew I wanted to make the party jazz-oriented, as my friend is a huge fan of jazz music. That's why I really wanted to have a live jazz band performing at the party. This means, concerning resources, I would need money to hire the band and a location for the party. So I ended up letting my friend's parents in on my birthday plan and asked them for some money to pitch in. Finally, time-wise, we only had 1 month to get this all done. Luckily, I did get the money from my friend's parents, but imagine I didn't have those resources. I would have had to limit the scope and just play some YouTube jazz music in the background instead. See, all 3 elements of the project management triangle must be in balance.
In the next chapters of this video, we will focus in more detail on each one of these 3 characteristics, starting with scope. Project scope defines exactly which goals your project has. It outlines what you're going to do, called in scope, and more importantly, what you're not going to do, called out of scope. How do you start defining the scope? There are 3 elements that you can take into consideration to do this. The purpose of your project, the benefits, and the output. With purpose, we look at the why. Why are you doing the project? Which problem are you trying to solve? Which opportunity do you want to grab? Benefits, the question is, what benefits or added value is your project going to generate? What's in it for the stakeholders, for example? And output, what is your project going to produce or deliver? It's not an either-or story. If you answer the question of purpose, you can use that answer to look at benefits. And again, if you answer benefits, you can use that to look at output. All of this will help you define the scope, what you will do and what you will not do. Let's go back to Berend.
Returning to the surprise birthday party. In defining the project's scope, the purpose of this project was undoubtedly celebrating my friend's birthday. What were the benefits that we would obtain from the party? Well, creating an unforgettable time for my friend, letting him have fun with his friends and family. And finally, what were the outputs? Well, a surprise birthday party and a live jazz band performance.
Defining your scope is not something you should do in isolation. Involve stakeholders. And stakeholders are people, groups, organizations that can benefit from and are affected by the project. By involving stakeholders, you can be sure that your project will deliver something that people really want. That is why we recommend you to identify all of the stakeholders and then talk to the most important ones to uncover what they expect from your project. In Berend's example, the most important stakeholders are the parents of his friend. Within scope, you can have multiple objectives, and it's important to get these objectives crystal clear. Because the more specific your objectives are, the greater the chances that you will achieve them. So make your objectives SMART, literally. Specific. Define your objectives clearly, in detail, with no room for misinterpretation. Measurable. The objective must be something you can directly measure, so you can assess if you have met the objective or not. Acceptable. Stakeholders must accept the objective. Realistic. The objective is realistic and it is reasonable to believe it can be reached. Timely. Include the date by which you will achieve the objectives. Let's ask Berend how this translates to his example.
Let's make my objectives SMART. A project can have multiple objectives, so let's focus on the example of booking a live jazz band. Specific. I want to book a local jazz band with at least 2 musicians performing for 2 hours at the party. Measurable. I can measure this objective by obtaining the booking confirmation on paper. 3. Acceptable. As my friend's parents are paying for the band and are therefore important stakeholders, they have to accept the band and the cost of it. Realistic. Getting the best jazz band in the United States to come over and play is not a realistic objective. So I would prefer to get a local jazz band instead. Timely. I want the booking confirmation for the band at least 2 weeks before the party.
In this chapter, we introduced you to the project management triangle, with its 3 key elements: scope, time, and resources. We zoomed in on scope. Project scope is where you describe what your project will do, and more importantly, what you will not do. Involve stakeholders to help you define the scope, and write your objectives in a smart way. Next up in the project management triangle is the element of time. And I have a funky idea to talk about that.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
As I was searching stuff on the project management triangle, I accidentally stumbled upon YouTube tutorials on how to play the triangle instrument. I've written a beautiful song about the project management triangle. Scope, time, resources, scope, time, resources. Thank you.